Welcome to Talkville. This is Daryl.
And this is John.
And as I said, this is Talkville, our weekly podcast where we roll up random characters and put them into a town together. We're going to go ahead and see what we roll up today. So, John, last episode, we rolled up Glint Alabaster,
We did.
who was our Earth Genasi. And he was pretty fun. He was a very interesting character to roll up as another bard.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't really give him a home, but I feel like he would be probably working alongside with Red in making like a brick style or like clay style house. Probably in that section of the neighborhood. I feel like there's a good mixture in our town where we have the ocean, we have salt, we can build up, there's a forest, and so there's a nice little mixture, I think, going on with the town and the houses.
Yeah, I think there's definitely materials to build a house out of brick or stone if you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
I think that fits with the character.
Yeah. And so jumping along in there, I think most of the characters have been really good. There have been some good feedback about just enjoying the different characters that we have. And so far we haven't had anybody go out on any adventures. Maybe they have, maybe they come back. And when they come back, they're going to meet this new character that we're rolling up today.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about that. And I like it's not so much a town as like a small village.
Yeah, it's starting to feel more like a village. Like there's so many characters now.
Yeah.
That it's not like it's getting hard to keep track of them, but it's starting to feel like it's starting to feel robust. You know what I mean? Like there is some life here now. We have multiple different alignments. We have lots of sort of varied personalities, and we're even starting to get some kind of commerce stuff set up. Remind me what Glint's profession was.
Oh,
I don't have the character sheet in front of me. If you want to send me that.
Yes. Real quick, it looks like he was proficient in calligraphers, and he's a bard.
That's right. So Glint, to just recap a little bit of the last episode, because it's been a minute since we recorded, but Glint is like the gemstone peddler, right?
Yeah,
like selling the what do you call it? Healing crystals and stuff. So
actually, I think that one,
or doing divination through healing crystals.
Yes. Yeah. He was the gemstone. Our little hoodlum. Well, not hoodlum. Our fortune telling and selling healing crystals. Folk hero.
Somewhat of a
bard.
swindler, maybe. Like not a spoony bard, but definitely like a bard who is a little bit on the sketchy side with the.
Well, I mean, in the same way that like somebody who sells esoteric items is sketchy. Like
yeah.
Like he or they, in particular, because Glint goes by the
gender neutral pronouns.
Yep. They know that these crystals and these rocks don't actually do anything, but they also know that the power of the mind is very strong, and that if they tell people that it heals and that people believe it, they will be healed.
Yeah, and they know just enough about anatomy and like medical terminology to kind of like pull that off on most people.
Yes.
Unless maybe somebody had a higher medicine skill than they did.
Yeah. Which is very difficult because they are pretty strong on that.
They've got a pretty high score in medicine.
Yes. And they also were, we talked about the lower part of their legs are turning into stone and
That's
are
right.
being more granite
Mhm.
as a way of expressing, and that also explains the lower dexterity.
Right. Yeah.
So when you play this character, yes, they might have lower sleight of hand or whatnot like that, but it's mostly the immobility for the lower half of the body.
Right. So I feel like that, just to add to what you said earlier about like the kind of home that Glint has, it's definitely like some kind of like either adobe structure or like brick. And then I'm also kind of picturing like a rock garden, like a rock zen garden.
I could see that.
You know what I mean? Because we talked a little bit about the possibility that of Glint spending some time working with astrology,
Yes,
using stones and things. So they might be setting something like that up. But
I think so too, and I think he probably works alongside of Red Sword cutting and polishing up the different gemstones that Glint uses.
Yeah, totally.
And
they have a business relationship there for sure.
Yes, and I don't think Red Sword is really perturbed or like against the idea, because like Glint isn't going to say like, "Oh, this is a magical crystal." He's like, "No. The stone's properties help you heal."
Right.
Like, because you'd get into a lot of trouble if you started saying, "This is a magic stone," in a world where there is actual magic stones and wizards who don't.
Someone casts Identify and goes, but you're full of crap.
Yes. So that would totally ruin his scam. But I think it's going good. And we were talking about how the town has grown. And Glint was number 9. So this is our 10th episode.
Yeah.
Our 10th character. So I think at this point we are properly a village. Well, kind of.
Yeah.
Like, so.
Yeah. It is starting to feel villagey for sure.
A commune almost.
I feel like just picturing in my head too, like this is about the point in time where people, if you're thinking about like what the town might actually look like, you know, paths are starting to be worn in the grass, right? Not just walking through the grass. You actually have a path forming. Like there's not necessarily a road, but some dirt paths and trails that they have kind of started to form as they're walking around and finding their way through learning the terrain and stuff like that.
And there's trails and stuff. And and there's probably mosquitoes biting them. I know that they're eating me alive. I got a huge knot on my leg. But that brings us to this new character. And as always, we're going to use all the races except for Turtle, because I haven't bought that. And I'm sorry, if you're waiting for a Turtle character to pop in, you got to support us, because I'm not chipping in on that one at the moment. And this is going to be a D30, basically.
Right.
So John tends to roll the D20. I roll the D10.
Sure. We can do that. Or do you want to flip it up this time? Switch it up and roll. You roll the 20 and I'll roll the 10.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Okay. It feels good to roll a 20, and I do like to share that.
I mean, I get to do all the counting, so I mean.
Yeah. All right. I'll roll the 10-sided dice.
Okay, ready? And roll.
Yep.
I have a 4.
7.
Okay, John, roll me a 6-sided dice, please.
Oh, interesting. We have something that has sub-races.
Yes.
Okay, cool. That's exciting now. Is this our first dwarf?
No.
I don't know. Okay. 4.
Okay. And we have a forest gnome.
Nice. So you're excited because you like gnomes.
I like gnomes. Right. I like halflings. I like dwarfs.
I tend to play dwarves myself.
I enjoy the smaller races. I like playing beings that aren't strictly the same as me. Like proprietary, like I like centaurs, minotaurs, tabaxi, things that have different movement and different body, slightly different body structures, because it just helps me get into that mindset more than just like, oh, I'm basically just a human with horns and hooves. Big deal.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I'm now. I just happened to go back in my mind to Japanese club
okay.
back in the day, and you and Stefan doing capoeira for like an hour. All right, enough about that.
Yes.
So tell me again, what subrace is this? I wanted to write it down.
This is a forest gnome.
Forest gnome.
Yes. They have a knack for illusions and quickness and stealth. Supposedly, in the worlds of D&D, forest gnomes are rare and secretive. They like to do illusions and trickery to conceal themselves. They tend to be very friendly and good-spirited to woodland folk and regard elves and good fae as important allies. We will have dark vision. Gnome cunning, which gives us advantage on all intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws against magic.
Cool.
We also get minor illusion as a cantrip. And speak with small beasts. Through the sounds and gestures, you can communicate simple ideas with small or smaller beasts. Forest gnomes love animals and often keep squirrels, badgers, rabbits, moles, woodpeckers, and other creatures as beloved pets. So
that's kind of cool. Mm-hmm. I kind of see like why there might be why it might be interesting to play gnome, just because you get so many neat extra racial benefits there.
Yeah, and they're not the usual ones, you know. They're not like
right.
Yeah, sure we get a +2 intelligence,
but they're useful. Like the spell thing is useful. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So we're starting with a gnome, but now we need to figure out the gender for this one, and we have switched to the D6 D10 method just to give a little bit more variance and also to help structure a little bit more. So the D6 is born as, and the D10 is presents as currently. And John, your preference today?
Let's see. How do we usually do it? Do we both roll, or
you can roll both?
I'll roll a D.
That's fine.
No, I mean, like, do we want to? No, we don't usually both roll a dice for this.
Not on this one, no.
Okay. How about I'll roll the D10 and you roll the D6?
Okay. So born as.
Right.
We have 3 born as female.
Okay, and here's the D10. 4 androgynous.
Okay. That's interesting.
Now, a lot of times, some of these gender expressions, like determine what type of pronouns you would want to use for the character. Mm-hmm. The most common would probably be they, them.
Yeah.
But like, again, with these characters, use what you think makes sense for your campaign and your character, and interpret that how you want. I think I would use they, them pronouns for this character.
I'm floating in between they, them, and just straight up her as
she, her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mostly because right now in my mind, until we roll up some other things, the androgyny is more of the aesthetic for this character in my mind.
Yeah, just more of a physical appearance so far. Yeah. It's more until we get some personality.
Yeah, a physical characteristic, and maybe even they see themselves as female, but prefer, looking in between and just not being kind of neutral with it.
Right.
And being
a lot of people do. I do think it's really interesting, and we've never really talked about it, but the way that we roll these, we do kind of develop how all that stuff fits as we go.
Yep.
So it's important. It is important to note that, like, hey, we've rolled these things. We're not actually exactly sure how that will actually manifest until we're done making the character.
Yep. And I like that with our system.
And still, like, y'all should totally. Sorry, there's a really cool dude on a motorcycle driving by.
Yeah.
He's gone now.
Yeah. The coolest of dudes right there.
Yeah. Wait, come back. That was a joke that they made on another podcast I was listening to where same thing happened. He was like, "Wait, cool guy, come back."
Tell me about your
We
motorcycle
don't
and how
have
fast
to.
it goes.
We don't have to put the cool guy in the episode, but I was gonna just say like, interpret these things as you will, but we will develop how we interpret it as we go along.
So, speaking of that, of interpreting and regarding, gnomes mature at the same rate as humans and are expected to settle down into an adult life around the age of 40. So, like, you're an adult now, go get a mortgage. But they can live up to 350 to almost 500 years because of their Fey ancestry.
Wow. That's kind of cool.
Because
That's
they
old.
are... So since they mature at about the same rate as humans, it could also mean that they could start adventuring as early as 20 or so in this world.
Does it mean that when they get old, they age at the same rate as humans are, so they look 80 at the same time that a human would look 80, and then after that it just gets worse?
No, I think
500 years of wrinkles is like
you're just sagging.
A raisin.
Yeah. At that point, everybody's androgynous, and because you can't tell anything, everything's just sagging. No, I think it means that they don't age at the same rate; they mature. So they reach maturity at the age of 40, like the peak of where they're going to be at, and then
their prime.
Yeah, and then that's just extended out exponentially. Well, not exponentially, but longer across the years. So I think we can roll. We need to have a base age. So I'm thinking of rolling a D10, and that being the decade that we start our base age at. Okay, and then we'll do our typical D6, D4 method of adding years onto it. Okay, 90.
Oh, jeez. We got another old one.
Not even that.
I love it.
Like, it's not even old. Like, I think, so 40 is like the age of 20 for them, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the maturity, like the 25 when human males would do that. So, like, they're an adult then. But at this point, like, he's a third through his life. So that would be like the 30s again. Something like that.
Yeah.
Plus, you're about to roll a D6, D4 and multiply those together and add it to it. So it could be even closer to over 100.
Let's do the D6 and the D4. A 1 and a 4. So just add 4.
94. Okay.
94. 94 years young. Which is probably equivalent to about like you said, 30s.
Yeah.
32, something like that. 31.
Yeah. And so that's pretty interesting with it, that this character is, the equivalent of our age in human years, probably has been working or has some kind of job or career and is now going into adventuring, or has finally gotten enough skill and confidence to go out adventuring. They've gotten their 5 to 6 years of experience and doing the entry-level adventuring job now.
Yeah, that's funny that you say that, because that puts them right in the same age group as the rest of the entire village.
I know.
They're all in their 30s, except for Red Sora, right? He's the one, like, old dude hanging out. He must be super, like, Red Sora, it gets cooler and cooler.
Yeah.
Like, he's dope.
Yeah.
A dope old dude, because he has so many homies that are young.
And they're all young in, like, different ways for themselves.
Yeah.
And it's like this millennial village where, like, it's like, you know what? Screw this town. I'm going to go make my own village. We're going to have a commune. People are going to be nice to each other. And they come and stumble upon this and, like, yes, this is the place.
Yes. Yes. I found my village.
Yes.
I found my people.
You are my people. Let's go ahead and roll a d10 and get the alignment done.
All right.
How does this character view themselves in the world?
Should I roll that?
Yes, please.
Or do you want to roll that?
No, you go ahead.
All right. D10. 7.
7. Lawful evil.
Uh-oh. Lawful evil. Oh, noes.
Another one. Ooh.
Celia has a friend or maybe a rival.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, I'm sure you're all tired of hearing, but this is just lawful greedy, lawful self-centered.
Yeah.
You know, it's a Karen.
Oh
No, I'm not gonna make it a Karen.
That to me would put the pronouns definitely in a she.
Yeah.
But
no, just lawful evil. You know, depending on what we roll for the traditions and for her job and class, then that could change because like it could be that it's more that she's based on the law and things like that, or it could be any number of other things. Actually, if I am thinking correctly, this might be our second. Is it our second lawful evil? We have a neutral evil with Jaruk. Celia is a lawful evil.
It's our second lawful evil character. Yeah, I don't think that any of the others are lawful evil.
Okay. Yeah. So now that we have the alignment, it is time to go into the abilities. And now this is going to be very interesting. This is always a fun one. As we roll 4d6 and take the highest 3. And sometimes the lowest 3 tends to be in Glint's case.
Mm-hmm.
And we just go along the way, starting from strength all the way down to charisma. We take what we get. John, would you care to start us off?
Sure. Okay. I'll do the strength. Not bad. 5, 4, 3. So that is a 12.
Yes, 12. Okay. So for a small person, pretty strong. Well, this is interesting. 6622. So for dexterity,
wow, that's good.
14, which makes sense.
Yeah, tracks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's do Constitution.
Yep.
Okay, and that's another 12. 6, 4, and 2.
Okay, so this
is a 1 sitting there.
So far, this character is pretty sturdy. She's very adventurous. Probably a wanderer. I feel like as a gnome, tends to stay in the woods, moving around, always hiking. I'm picturing like we don't need another druid, but like the kind of backpacker hiker who's always like doing the Scandinavian walking all the time and is like CrossFit. Like,
what class is the hiker?
Ranger.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
Oh crap. Oh, that's not so bad. 2, 5, 5, and a 4. So 14 for intelligence.
Wow.
Which is actually going to get bumped up from the racial modifier.
Yeah, and they'll have advantage on certain checks.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Yep. This is a good character.
Yeah.
This is mechanically a good character, you guys.
So far, until we mess it up.
We could bomb it on the next 2. We'll see.
Hopefully we will.
So wisdom is next.
Yes.
Let me go ahead and. You guys.
Not gonna be a ranger.
7.
Awesome.
4, 2, 1, and 1. Oh, there we go. I said we could bomb it.
Hey, John, I see you're 7, and I raise you a 5. Oh, sorry, no, six. I miscounted.
Six. Okay. But maybe we'll get some racial bonuses to help with that a little bit.
Nope. The racial bonuses are
No.
dexterity and intelligence.
So what are our final stats?
Our final stats are strength.
Our final abilities.
12. Dexterity 15. Constitution 12. Intelligence 16. Wisdom 7. Charisma 6. They are going to need that advantage on spells, saving throws against magic badly.
So I know we normally do like background.
Yes.
Next we do class last.
Yeah.
But just based on these stats.
Yes.
I have some. I'll save it for before we get to class. Let's save it until we're ready to roll class.
Yeah.
But I have some thoughts. I've already got, based on these stats alone, I have some thoughts pigeonholed too. Somewhat.
I think it would be really funny to hit sorcerer or ranger, just because they'd be so bad at it. But
they'd be terrible. Yeah.
But at that point, the trick would be hopefully that we roll up spells and things that, and when you play it, are not conducive to like saving throws. In this case, like you would want utility, and it's interesting. As a person who plays sorcerer a lot, you're a little squishy because you're a spellcasting thing, but you can be really good in melee and doing like range attacks and things like that too.
Okay. Yeah.
Depending on, because the thing about sorcerer is like you are a wizard is like Batman. You have utility all over the place. You can choose what spells you need each day and go. But as a sorcerer, you're like a hyper focus, like Deathstroke or something like that. You know, you
kind of glass cannon style.
Glass cannon are completely utility based. Or you get to do meta magic, so you get to change up your spells a little bit. So what you do, like where a wizard might have a lot of options and choices, you're super focused, and so you don't want to spread yourself too thin. You want a few damaging things and stuff like that. But we'll get into that when we get to the classes. But now we're going to go into background. And for the background, we use everything but the Magic the Gathering. So it's 17 options. Before we do that, should we do the occupations? We did have a D100 list of occupations. And we could roll that first to kind of see what the mundane occupation was that this character had. Or we can do that after we do the background and see.
No, why not? Let's change up a little bit and do the occupation first.
So I'm going to roll on a D100. I forgot to say which one was which. I'm going to go with blue being the 10s because I did that earlier. So 80.
Okay.
Shepherd. Was the original occupation.
Now that does kind of fit with a forest gnome. They could be a tree shepherd, but they could also be like shepherd of forest critters, like squirrels.
I mean, they were probably like herding a bunch of hedgehogs around and things like that.
I would love a gnome that has a herd of hedgehogs.
That seems really fun, right? Like that's.
What is the name of like, you know how there's like a murder of crows?
Yeah.
What is a group of hedgehogs called?
I don't know. A bushel?
It's probably something like the collective noun for a group of hedgehogs is array or prickle. I like a prickle of hedgehogs.
So this 94-year-old gnome like has a prickle of hedgehogs that she just kind of like scurries around.
Right.
That's great. I love it. Like that's what she used to do, and then she found
no one messes with my prickle.
This is the law of the prickle. You either die by the prickle, you live to see yourself become the pricked. John,
All right.
please roll a d20 so we can move on to the background.
Okay. But maybe, Daryl, maybe it's like they're not just hedgehogs, maybe they're dire hedgehogs. So they're actually kind of dog sized. A prickle of dire hedgehogs.
Like, it's still considered a small animal because like hedgehogs are tiny. It's the size of like a cat.
Yeah. Perfect.
That'd be adorable.
World building. That's canon now in our universe. There are dire hedgehogs and they are cat sized.
Yes.
All right, I'm rolling the d20. That, y'all, is a 3.
1, 2. Well, okay. Let me just double check this by taking off the Magic of the Gathering. So, our shepherd is an experienced criminal with a history of breaking the law.
What?
You spend a lot of time with other criminals and still have contacts within the criminal underworld. You are far closer than most people to the world of murder, theft, and violence that pervades the underbelly of civilization, and you have survived up to this point by flaunting the rules and regulations of society.
Okay, how do we have?
She's an illegal hedgehog herder.
Yeah, no, not a hedgehog herder, man. A hedgehog
Fight Club.
No. What? Rustler.
Ooh.
Hedgehog rustler. That prickle is stolen.
She stole a prickle of hedgehogs.
Oh my god, this is the episode where everyone thinks we're stoned. It's
not our fault. I've been up for 3 hours now.
It's very late for me, and it's very early for you. Well, very late for you too now, right? You've been staying up.
Yes. So okay. So maybe she's a wrestler. She's maybe she's an animal like trader that takes illegal animals or exotic animals and trades them away. She's proficient in deception and stealth. Deception, I don't believe because she has no charisma. But like maybe she's like not so much it also says spy.
Yeah.
Maybe she was or has presented herself as like a trader of animals or like a shepherd or a herder of these small, fairly rare beasts that she takes around, and she goes into towns and like spies on them. Maybe she does this into towns that are nearby her village or her forest and finds out information that could be detrimental and then brings it back to them. It doesn't necessarily mean like, she's lawful evil, but by whose standards? She's just.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was wondering about is how do we rationalize lawful evil with the criminal background that we have?
Yeah.
She could be reformed, and no more prickle rustling for me. It's all
free range prickles.
It's all free range prickles, all totally legal prickles.
Yeah.
But I mean, like you said, they're all like by whose standards is a real good like way of putting it. Like maybe the way you rationalize it is that she isn't the type that would openly break the law for no good reason, or wouldn't openly break the law within view of authority.
Yeah. Alternatively,
you know what I mean?
Alternatively, it could be that she goes by the code of the forest gnomes and like the treaties that are there in this thing, and flaunts more of the traditional like human laws. So like they say you can't.
Yeah, these are our prickles.
Yeah. Yeah. She's like, you have a herd of prickles
We walk this land.
in your town. You didn't pay tribute to us. I'm stealing them back.
Right.
And by human standards, she's like, oh, maybe. So have you seen the Book of Life?
I don't think
Okay,
so.
so it's a Pixar book, Pixar movie where it came out before Coco, and Disney ripped off of them. But basically, it's a story about the Day of the Dead and whatnot like that, and it's set in Mexico, in the storytelling setting. And one of the characters is a girl who is trying to do good. And in one of the things, she finds this really cute pig in a pen that is going to be cooked for food. And she's like, oh no, we're going to save the animals. So she's trying to be good. She's chaotic neutral in this case. And she breaks it open and saves the animals and like that, and like causes a lot of destruction and mayhem. This character could also be something like that, where they go into human settlements and like they release the pets.
Oh, like an activist.
Yes. Yeah, they they go
like forest gnome PETA.
Yeah, where
save the prickles.
Yeah, they go and they save the prickles. Yes, they go into cities. They learn about like rich people who are hurting the exotic animals, and they steal them back and release them into the wild.
Yeah, she could be involved in rustling the animals that are that do not traditionally belong to human settlements or whatever, stealing them back and returning them to nature or whatever. I like that.
Yeah, and I like that a lot. And by human standards and by the law, there she is a criminal. She's part of an organization,
right?
That like maybe she sells information also from these. Like she breaks into the houses, she spies on the people. She gets information. She sells it back to the criminal network, who helps her move the animals because it's very hard for a gnome to move it. And so she's involved that way. And she's lawful evil in the case that she has decided that these people don't deserve these animals, and it's by her code that she's doing this.
And what's the what is it to skim a little extra off the top every now and then too?
Yeah, I mean, you got to eat something, get you something good.
Yeah.
So before we move on, could you roll a D4 for the gaming set that she is proficient at?
Gaming set.
Yeah, she's proficient with
magic
tools.
All right, D4. That is a 3.
Playing cards. So
sweet. It is magic cards. How did I call it?
Now
they're not magic cards.
Let's do her suggested characteristics before we get too big into rationalizing how she's lawful evil and a spy and a criminal.
Yeah,
working in our town. Let's see what her personality says. So, John.
Okay.
We each roll a D8 and find out her personality traits.
Sweet. Let me grab a D8.
Okay.
I rolled a 2.
I rolled a 3. So the 2. I am always calm no matter what the situation. I never raise my voice or let my emotions control me. Seems like a logical person, like hyperlogical, not wisdom and charisma. 3. The first thing I do in a new place is note the locations of everything valuable or where such things could be hidden.
Okay.
John, roll a D6 for her.
Someone who has a history with crime might be able to do that.
Yeah. Roll her ideals.
Ideals. Another D8.
D6.
D6. My bad.
That's okay.
Two.
Freedom. Chains are meant to be broken, as are those who would forge them.
It just works.
It does. Okay, bond.
How do we do this every time?
6. Someone I love died because of a mistake I made. That will never happen again. She lost a prickle.
Oh man. She lost a prickle. The whole prickle died.
Yep.
Or, I mean, so you could tie that in with the criminal background. Maybe that's the reason she's no longer directly involved. I mean, you could play it that way.
Yep.
You could say that this is a former past, and they still have connections, or that she could still be involved.
Yep.
And I don't recall what the role actually, what the description actually said, but
no, you're not. It just says that you have experience. So
right. So you could say that she's lawful evil now. She's still very self-centered, but she doesn't break the law anymore because someone died.
Yeah.
Or you could just say it was somebody who died during a prickle freeing mission gone wrong.
Yeah. And she's haunted by it. John, would you roll a d6 for the flaw? And we'll find out truly if that's the case.
What is the flaw? 4.
I have a tail that reveals when I'm lying.
Okay.
That's
what
interesting.
would the tail be?
So in this case, I think I kind of want her to thumb her nose. Like
Nice.
Like she's like
just kind of
She like scratches
like
at her nose a couple times and then puts her hand down when she starts to lie.
For those listening, the kind of gesture that we both just made was sort of like, if you think of, can't remember his name, martial artist.
Oh, Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee. Yeah. So for those listening, the gesture that we both made is kind of like the Bruce Lee nose thumbing thing, or just scratching your nose,
like as if you had something there to flick or wipe it away or whatnot. That this fits really well because she has a really bad charisma, and even though she's proficient in deception, she has a tail. So
yeah,
and it's going to be kind of a thing when she's outright lying. But like if she's telling a half truth, maybe she doesn't do that. It's like you gotta It's not always win the line, but like an outright, like she has to make up a story about a lie. Like, oh no.
Yeah.
I found these hedgehogs out in the street and they were just walking, so I decided to herd them back out into the woods. Like they're not the mayor's.
I don't know. Rubs nose profusely.
And they're like,
who
and the guard's like, have you been snorting crack? And she's like, no. I'm allergic to them.
I'm allergic to the prickle.
Yeah, but
I think that gives the DM a great tool for explaining like how certain roles might be failed.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like they notice your tail.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? When you even though you have advantage in deception or whatever, you fail the roll somehow, or I'm going to give you disadvantage because this character has a high
wisdom, perception, or insight. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. High insight score. And so it's because your tail is very obvious to that person.
Mm-hmm. And it also gives you something to play with. So as you take this character, think about what it could have been that they lost. I have a feeling that it's probably I really feel like it was an animal, like not just someone, but like an animal that they had made a connection with that died.
Oh, so I mean, forest gnomes often form a bond with an animal.
Yeah, they like to have lots of pets and they're very like emotional to them.
Maybe it was a very special hedgehog.
Yes.
And that's why they have to free all the hedgehogs.
Yes, it could be. Yeah. They had a special with a wild hedgehog that was captured, maybe, and brought into captivity by a human noble or something like that for like the kid. And the hedgehog died
ended up on the dinner table. And
I was going to go with that.
Somebody made hedgehog pie.
Wow. I was just going to say it died from neglect, but okay, sure. They ate it.
Well, neglect is even worse than they ate it.
I mean, like the humans misunderstood what the hedgehog needed to survive. Had like made up a like aquarium or whatever for it, and this hedgehog just like died from loneliness or like sadness, and like they just didn't
or just didn't know how to take care of it, didn't know what to feed it, didn't
properly.
know.
Yeah, they were just feeding it basic
Yeah.
grass or something like that, and like, so not
Yeah.
necessarily like they weren't taking care of it, but they just mistook care of it and ended up dying. And so now this character goes out, or has been going out to rescue any type of exotic animal that is being kept by nobles, not necessarily human nobles, but any noble in particular. It's like got a pet that they really shouldn't have. That brings us to our class. We need to figure out how this character goes about rescuing.
Okay. Now, I'm glad we saved the speculation because a lot of this has sort of informed in my mind now. Remember, I had said earlier I had ideas just based on the stats.
Yes.
Before we discussed any of the background and stuff, I would have probably said barbarian or just any sort of like, because based on the stats, what I see is like a fighter type class.
Yeah.
Like, but now I'm thinking either like ranger or druid.
We could always use a third druid, and then we'd have like a druidic circle forming here.
Or like a shaman? Is that a class?
That is not a class.
Cut that out. That's not a class.
I mean, I feel like a shaman is a really cool class. A mixture of like a barbarian and druid, or barbarian and cleric, as like a shaman.
Why did I think shaman is a class?
It's a common trope class. It really is. Here's my thought.
Yeah.
So I was with you on the barbarian. I'm also feeling rogue and wizard for this character. Again, wizards aren't particularly viewed as being a class that's melee focused, but you could, because there's a couple of different builds for it and the ways that they learn. But just because you're a spellcasting class doesn't mean you can't be proficient in the armor or whatnot later on and be able to cast in combat. That is potential. There's feats for that if your group does that. Wizard, because of the high intelligence, being able to choose and pick the spells to be a spy, to get into places, very utility focused, especially depending on which one we go with. Rogue, criminal, easy. For a small being who has advantage on stealth and night or dark vision and things like that, it's a pretty easy one to go with. And it's really, we don't even have to be melee focused. It could be a ranged focus. Barbarian is a little bit harder to justify, but I can still see it. It'd be a lot of fun. So top two picks.
So before we get to the top two picks, shaman is like a class on like the homebrew.
Oh yeah.
Wiki and stuff. That's why and it uses like a mixture of like warlock and druid spells.
Interesting.
So anyways, yeah, okay, so you were saying.
So my top two picks, like my gut feeling for this character is rogue wizard. That's my top two. I'm locking those in. That's what I'm hoping for. What about you?
I think you've kind of convinced me that maybe a rogue before ranger, and I'm still going to throw out druid as a possibility.
Okay. So this will be interesting. So we're each going to roll a D20, not a D20, a D12. And that would be our two classes that we're going to pick and argue over. Now,
oh, man.
This is the make it or break it. It always is. And
yeah, it really is.
Let us find out.
I'm afraid to say.
I got a 6.
I'll say mine first. I also got a 6. Uh-oh. What are we destined to be, Daryl?
I don't want to be a monk.
That is broken.
I don't want to be a monk.
Yeah, but like you said, this is the make it or break it. Is this our third monk too?
Oh no, second monk, I think.
Second monk. I remember that the
Mishra is a monk. The lizard folk.
Mishra's a monk.
Yes. Is Nevin a monk? No, Nevin's a ranger.
Somebody else is a monk. We can just forget about that.
I don't think. No, I don't. I think Mishra is the only monk.
I thought there was more than one.
No.
Village is getting big, man.
Yeah. The village is getting big.
I have a spreadsheet. Let me open the spreadsheet and I'll tell you.
No, I'm pretty sure Mishra is the only monk. Oh man, though.
You really don't like it, do you?
It's not so much that I don't like it. It's difficult to justify. I find it very. It nombos a lot because we get a -2 modifier.
Yeah, it certainly does.
With the wisdom, but a +2 modifier from the dexterity, which means our AC is 10 if we're not wearing any armor or not using shield, so we have to use an armor. I don't know. It's not a great hit, and I'm just a little upset with my dice about it. But we do get to choose a monk skill, which 1, 2, 3, 4, which is a D5. Technically a D6, but we already have stealth. So we each roll a D10 and split it and see what we get for the skill.
I can still hear your voice. It's just totally just taking the wind out of your sails.
It has. But I'm going to make it work. I'm going to figure out how this is going to work.
Okay.
I refuse to be distraught and sad about this.
Let's do the roll and then we'll talk about how it works.
Yes.
How that?
That sounds good.
All right, D10?
Yes.
6.
6. So that is history and athletics. And then like a D20 or something like that for the musical instruments and artisan tools. Would you roll a D20, please?
Yeah. 13.
Horn. she releases the prickles with a horn.
Yes. You know what? Maybe we should just embrace that this character is a little bit funny and wacky and not dwell too much on trying to make it force everything to work in our heads.
So real quick, what do you think her tradition would be? So I'm gonna level it up to level 3 just so we can kind of pick that real quick. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7.
Let me think about that. Let's look at the
6. There's 6 options that we can do.
Okay.
1, 2. So there's a lot of. This could be very interesting. So this is a part that we don't always. I was gonna say we don't always do, but we do it to give a guidance on where we think the character could be going. I'm gonna roll a d6 with a green dice because they're always nice to me. Way of the open hand. So deflecting missiles.
That's kind of the default one, isn't it?
Yep. But it's the one that you can like just knock people down, knock them prone, and things like that by influencing the key. You get to do stunning strikes and stun people. So yeah, it's the basic default one. She's just an open hand, which I can see working as a spy and a criminal, right? Nobody assumes that this little gnome who's wearing like basic gnome clothes from the forest with no weapons ever is dangerous. But she knows how to like manipulate larger creatures into like falling and going prone and striking like at the knees or the hips and the joints. So I can see that. Like it's not as bad.
So I have to plug my wife's character, Zahala, the Walking Storm, who was a monk and like very influential on just kind of like how I view monks in my head. One of the, like, a monk to me is just like a walking destruction. All they do is just turn things into tomato sauce. But one of the things that was neat about her character was her background was that she was raised by owl bears. And it ended up becoming this whole thing where, like, the monastery that she came from was in the Feywild, and it was like dedicated to owlbears, kind of in like a Avatar type of way, where they learned their martial arts from the owlbears.
Yeah, so she learned her bending that way.
Believe. Yeah. So, and they were kind of like sacred to their order. So, anyways, what I'm trying to say is, like, that was sort of off the wall at first, but it ended up, as we played, sort of manifesting into something that really solidified the character's identity. So being a monk, I'm thinking of, like, she's a forest gnome. She spends a lot of time herding. She has to travel light, and she spends a lot of time working with, we decided, prickly hedgehogs, which maybe you need a certain amount of dexterity to work with. And it could just be like that the monk herding, the hedgehog herding monks of the forest gnomes are renowned for their skill in animal handling and in, dealing with prickly foes.
So I like this idea that you brought up with the monastery tradition basing off of the animal. And I want to throw a counter idea on this. It's not that her tradition as a monk, like, it's not a forest gnome tradition, like, for the monks to be this way. It's that because she is a shepherd, and that because she has herded small animals and these gotten into these giant dire hedgehogs that she's herding, she has developed monk skills.
Yeah.
So it's not so much a traditional monk, so much as a monk arising from work.
Yeah, I dig that. And I like that sort of interpretation of the idea, because she's just doing what you have to do to be able to deal with the animals and just developing those skills.
And then as she started to go through and rescue, quote unquote, rescue these animals from nobles and spying, she developed more understanding of, like, how to disable a guard, like take him out by the ankles and get the animals across without injuring and without carrying weapons. So she has developed these abilities and these skills from practice, not necessarily from an actual tradition, which would be interesting when she meets with Mishra, who's a sun soul and has, like, a dedicated temple and tradition for learning and fighting. It could be that this is where she learns more of the martial art aspect in the town and gives background there.
So for now, she's more of a self-taught type of monk. Who has just developed the skills through
practice and dealing with these prickly animals. That brings us to our favorite part of the time, which is the names. So gnomes love names, and most have half a dozen or so.
All right.
A gnome's mother, father, clan elder, aunts, and uncles each give a gnome a name, and various nicknames from just about everyone else might or might not stick over time. A gnome's names are typically variants on the names of ancestors or distant relatives, though some are purely new inventions. When dealing with humans and others who are stuffy about names, a gnome learns to use no more than 3 names: a personal name, a clan name, and a nickname, choosing the one in each category that is most fun to say.
Nice.
Some examples of female names is Bib Naughton, Brina, Karamip, Carolyn, Ella, Ellie Jobel, Eliwick, Lily, Luke Morton, Oda, Nix, Rowan, Shemale, Tana, Wei Wackett, and Zana.
There's a lot of different. So I see 2 here on my randomly generated list, and we don't have to use either of them, but just throwing them out there. I like Faewyn, spelled Faewyn. That's a very 90s fantasy name. And then Cloxis.
Cloxis?
Cloxis. Kloxis.
Faewyn?
That's just kind of
Cloxis is a lot of fun to say.
Cloxis is fun to say.
And I think at that point we have to go with Cloxis. Like that's the naming trope here. Is it has to be fun to say.
And like this, even though it generated under the female names button, I feel like that, like you really can't. It's more of a neutral name, you know. You can't really
super neutral,
yeah.
Cloxis, and the nickname could be Prickles.
I love Prickles. I was going to say Prickleberry, but I like Prickles too.
Yeah, Cloxis Prickles. And I don't care about the clan name. That can be up to the listeners.
Yeah, totally.
If you can find a fun clan name to go with, because again, they just choose something, you know. So
I like it.
So Cloxis Prickles, the criminal spy monk who herds dire hedgehogs, and rescues them from.
It sometimes works with Fantasy PETA.
Occasionally.
Yeah, occasionally.
She may or may not lead them and like schedule where they go out, and like she's like Fantasy PETA's like resource manager. She's like, we know that they have them. Go out and do that. Like, but she's not leadership material and doesn't like warn them about, oh, by the way, they have lots of traps and guards, because she doesn't think about that. It's all logical.
Yeah.
I enjoy this character. This is going to be a fun one.
It
would be very interesting to play.
It was a journey for sure, but I enjoyed rolling this one up, and the result is not what we anticipated, but it works.
It really does, and I'm really happy, and I'm glad that the listeners, you were here for this journey and stayed along with us.
Yeah.
For the 10th character so far, this is the epitome. Like, this is what happens. We plan. We're like, oh, it's gonna be great this way, and the dice say no, make it work, and we do. So thank you all for listening to the podcast. If you don't mind, please leave a like, subscribe, and share it with your friends and family, neighbors, your hedgehog,
your grandma.
Whoever. Yeah, your grandma's grandma.
I always add your grandma.
Yeah, your aunt. Yeah. It really helps depending on which platform you're listening on. If you want to support in a more financial way, please support us on podcast. There will be a link in the description. And you can find both me and John on social media. Me at Raging Cajun Studio on most formats, Twitch, YouTube, Podbean. I curate that. And you can find John.
You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch as Jonicus with a 0 instead of an O. I believe that's it.
Yep.
I can't think of another.
Yeah, and so feel free to stop by, send us messages on these platforms, inquire about a character, and if you have any suggestions or things that you'd like to hear about us from.
Yeah, please leave comments. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We love comments or just email commentary or messages, DM us, whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm. And that brings us to the end of this episode. We will see you at the next time at the Town of Orphan Characters.
Peace.